O'Neill.
David, how are you? Hello?
Hello?
You there?
Hang on.
During parking mode, event detection recording occurred.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, mate, I can hear you.
Yeah. The car just interfered with it, wanted to be on speakerphone, whatever.
Okay, fair enough. Is now a good time to talk, or?
Yeah, you can talk.
No worries, mate. Look, thanks for getting back in touch with me yesterday.
That's all right, I've posted that thing off to you anyway.
Oh, good work. I wanted
1988 that was.
1988. All right. And what year was your sighting?
93.
93.
I
Okay.
think, yeah.
So, tell me about your sighting anyway. What exactly happened? You were down the Coorong, I believe.
Well, I was travelling from Adelaide to Mount Shank or Mount Gambier, I dare say, and it was about 10:15 in the morning, and between Meningie and whatever, I saw something going across the road from a paddock, which is what you call flat grass land for cattle, I dare say, and so I pulled my car off to the side, so it was about 100, 150 metres away.
Yep.
And when I saw this thing, I'd never seen anything like it before. And then, so I travelled, I watched it go across the road to the bush-lined Coorong side.
Yep.
And then it walked towards me and casually didn't speed up and then disappeared into the bushes. So I had a good look at its tail, its rear end and its head, and there's just nothing like it. I've actually worked up in the oil area of South Australia and worked with dingoes, so I'm a fairly good bush person. I know no slouch. It's definitely not an elephant, definitely not a fox,
Yep.
definitely not a dingo, and it had stripes on its back, so it was a very light brown colour with dark stripes and a very solid tail and a very solid rear end.
So, it was coming from the east, heading west towards the Coorong.
No, it's coming from the north, because the paddock, I'm travelling west to east, and on my left-hand side, it came out from just flat grassland paddocks,
Yep.
and that's not natural, it's all cultivated for, dare say, cattle.
So, you got a good view of it.
Oh, absolutely. And being at 10:15 in the morning, no doubt at all. So that's what I saw it. So
So, how big was it roughly? Was it as big as a Labrador, or?
oh, dare say, but no in size, lengthwise, yes. Height, size, probably not. But it's just really solid rear end. And if you look at the ones in the South Australian Museum, it's of that size,
Yep.
but completely different colour. The one in South Australian Museum, which I've seen since,
Is a fawn colour.
it's just a white colour, really.
Yeah, it's a bit faded, that one, but it's a good taxidermy.
Yes.
And
So-
you're on your own when you had this
Yeah.
experience?
No sort of dash cams in those days, unfortunately. So
Yep. And what year was it, do you think?
I reckon it's about 1984,
Okay.
around about then. 83, 84, I'd say.
Yep. I was still in high school then.
Probably 83.
I was still in high school then.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I was working up bush, but we had a strike going on, so we had to make ends meet and a bit of a holiday from work. See, so
I
we
see.
had to come down from the desert area, and then I thought I'd go down and see my cousins down the southeast.
Yep. I know Mount Shank. I've climbed Mount Shank.
Yeah, well, my cousins own a property at Mount Shank. See?
Oh, yeah, perfect.
But
Had you ever heard of these animals being in South Australia or anything like that before, prior to your sighting?
No, I don't think so. No, I hadn't.
But it was absolutely random.
Oh, yeah, it shocked me. That's why I pulled across the side of the road. I just couldn't believe what I'd seen, so I was sort of stunned.
And how long in duration do you think your sighting went for?
Oh, a minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes, yeah.
Excellent.
So it wasn't, it didn't seem to be agitated or whatever. It's just going
about its business.
What it did every day, I dare say.
Yep. And how close all up was it when you got as close to it as you did?
Oh, probably 20 metres, 25 metres in the end before it disappeared into the bushes, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty close.
Mm.
That's very close.
Mm.
And you said to me yesterday when we spoke about a ranger you'd spoken to. Can you explain to me what happened there?
Well, my friend who was into reptology or reptiles.
Yep.
And always he was in contact with the rangers for the wildlife department.
Yep, reporting what he'd seen and
he
stuff.
He indicated to me that this guy and his name was Tony Robinson, was going to write a page or an article on because people kept saying that they'd seen
Thylacines.
Thylacines, and he didn't believe them. He thought that they, were on drugs. Well, drugs weren't available in those days, I dare say, but he thought that what they saw was dingoes.
Yep.
And because, in theory, the thylacine probably only has one offspring every couple of seasons, or that the dingoes would clean them up. But, yes, so he wrote a paper on it. So I work 7 days a week. Once a fortnight, if I'm in Adelaide, I get a day off. So I rang him up to make an appointment because he, as my mate said, he'd like to see me. But I went to see him and discussed what I'd seen and sort of tried to convey him that I wasn't seeing things. Anything that I had, he could have, because I was that certain that it was a thylacine. So his paper was just discussing people's, in theory, sighting of the thylacine and him trying to dismiss that theory. So that's when I posted that article to you. So I didn't read it. So he's got a drawing of a thylacine there.
Yep, that he's done,
or some artist with no art ability, probably. And so that's all I could do. Use my day off, which is pretty important to me, and tried to stress on to him that I've gone out of my way because I'm certain if he just to try and change his mind or give him a good perspective.
Yep.
I've been out bush a fair bit and caught marsupial mice and snakes and frogs that had eaten a yellow-faced sweep snake, and both had died. And Professor Mike Tyler had that in his collection, which was given to him.
Right.
He was mentioned in the advertiser at one stage. So I'm no slouch.
You know what you're looking at with wildlife.
I know what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
But as I probably discussed at one time, they had a thylacine night at the South Australian Museum, and I wasn't allowed to discuss that with the boss, who was American, about the thylacine. And
that would have been Kath Kemper.
And she dismissed I said, well, at least I've seen one, which is probably a bit bitchy.
Yep.
You will never, ever see one. But she said, wait, all I had was a slide of an elephant and a camel and a fox and a dingo, and you had to look at the tail and this and that. But you got to be joking. It's just nothing like any of those. So
I've spoken to a few people that went to that evening over the years, and none of them were impressed with the way the museum scoffed at them.
No, but as I said, I met up with two guys, both from the southeast. One that had seen two thylacines at separate times. One chasing a kangaroo on a really there at night, and he's actually taken a cast that if I can get his card and find his name, probably lived in the Lucendale, probably Narracourt area.
Yeah, that's a prime sightings area around Lucendale.
So on display they had a plate with about 5 different footprints. One of a dingo, I dare say, one of a dog, whatever.
Yep.
So if you press the correct one, it would indicate by giving you a bell or some recognition. So he had said that he had cast Thylacine footprints.
Yep.
And so in the presence of myself and this other lad, pushed the correct one. He only had one shot, and that was it. He got... So they can dismiss a lot of people, but it does exist. Instead of wasting people's money on $5 million trying to recreate them, I think they still exist.
Yeah, they know they exist, mate. They want to create something that they can say they own. Because it's patented and designed. This isn't about fixing nature. This is about selling nature. That's all it's about.
But with me reticent to discuss it with every Tom, Dick and Harry because of the ridicule you probably get, or you've seen things, or...
Yeah.
I did discuss it with one of the guys where I work, and he mentioned to me that his mates are fishermen in a certain area of South Australia.
Yep.
And once every fortnight they'd go to fish and gut fish.
Yep.
Clean them up, and fish had come in to clean up the mess. One or two thylacines.
There you go.
And they didn't say anything, see? So they know that they'd be pretty called a wally or whatever.
Yeah. And just keep it to themselves, yeah.
Happy to keep it to themselves, yeah.
Yes, that's often the case, and often, unfortunately, these people that work for the science community that are meant to be open to whatever evidence they receive seem to be very closed-minded indeed, and they're not open at all. So they're doing the opposite of science by doing that, but they claim that they are the top scientists, you know.
But I'd like to, if I kept that article on the people who used to donate to the South Australian Museum.
Yeah.
And they've pulled their funding for whatever reason, I'd like to talk to them and find out why. Because it's probably the same reason as we don't trust them, because they're a different agenda, which isn't just purely...
Yeah, it's not about public information and disclosure. It's about keeping secrets and making up stories. I mean, I arranged to see Dr. Geiler's print cast from 1962 when I went to the Hobart Museum, and I made it quite clear that was what I wanted to see. It's public property. And I got down there and they had everything but that. And when I asked Nick Mooney about that, he said, oh, well, they're not available today, sorry, and they're just dog prints anyway, so, yeah.
But it must be, this attitude must be endemic across these...
It is, it's endemic right across the entire country. Yeah, it's some sort of academic club that we're not in, but that's okay, we don't really want to be in that club.
But one of my associates through my friend that did reptiles, he's or has worked at the museum, and I'm not sure that he's there anymore, but I'm definitely going to say something to him if and when I see him, which is very, very rarely.
Yep.
That I'm not happy with the culture at the museum.
Yeah. They're all...
If he doesn't like it, well, that's it.
They're all rather egotistical about their letters after their name, unfortunately. It seems to be more important than the actual science, like citizen science is a real thing. People find lots of really interesting bits of information and clues and evidence, and it sort of, when it comes to this animal, it just gets completely ignored. So, yeah, I can't work it out, but, it's obviously got something to do with industries that, profit from nature.
But
and
even
its
if
destruction.
you caught one of the thylacine, you'd be reticent to let them know because they'd probably want to kill it and pull it apart.
They'd probably want to kill me and kill it. I don't think they'd be very happy if I found one. But anyway, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Yeah.
But, so if I won Cross Lotto, that's the thing I'd like to do is...
Well, power to you, mate. Go and win that Cross Lotto.
Yeah, I know. But I'm always of the thought that if you had a bacon bone that you barbecued for a while, in theory they're attracted to that, So anyway, who knows?
Yeah. No, there's a whole lot of things they're probably attracted to. I know they do like bacon. That's well documented in the old Bushy's notes from Tasmania. And they like fresh roadkill too. They'll take fresh roadkill.
And they also like fish guts.
Yeah, well, that doesn't surprise me because they're blood feeders. So any of those bloody bits of the fish they'd be interested in, I'd think, the organs and stuff.
Yeah, so, and it's pretty aromatic and fresh. So
certainly.
Anyway.
Well, they do like the coast. That's very common knowledge. We find prints along the coast often in Tassie and in South Australia, actually. And Victoria too, so it's not uncommon.
I did think of the thylacine when I came through Tintinara, but it wasn't on the coast road. I came through from Melbourne middle of last week. So.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, there's plenty of sightings on Duke's Highway there.
Yeah, but I didn't see any.
Yep.
Not like the year before I saw mine, where that friend of mine saw one between Thylacine Bend and Meningie. So
we had a sighting between Thylacine Bend and Meningie about 2 years ago. Two guys driving down the road. This fox come belting out of the scrub there. Not far from the turn-off, actually, when you turn off to go to Meningie. And then about 30 seconds later, this thylacine came belting out of the scrub after the fox, chasing it.
Yeah, but as I said before...
So when you're seeing a fox and a thylacine, you'd kind of, you're running out of options.
Well, when I was at Moomba, lads saw a fox with a rabbit in its mouth, and then what rushed out was a dingo and then grabbed the two of them.
Yep.
But getting back to my friend saw that dingo between Thylacine Bend and Meningie. It had a white tip on its tail, and that sort of rang bells with you because I think a photograph of a tail you've taken of one had a white tip as well. So
yeah, there are. But foxes do have white tips and,
No, this wasn't a fox.
Yep.
This was a thylacine.
Yeah, okay, yep. Yeah, look, there's plenty of good information comes out of sightings, and I don't dismiss it because people notice different things,
Yeah, well, I don't stop my car every 5 minutes on the side of the road shaking with disbelief. I think I just couldn't believe my eyes. See, so.
Yeah, that's it. No, it's a profound thing when it happens.
Just a thing you do not expect to see in your life. So.
Yeah. Awesome. Well,
right,
look, mate. When I receive that, I'll use that as well. And if you're okay with it, I'll just put a little interview out on our YouTube channel for people to have a listen to.
Yeah, as long as they can understand me. So.
Yeah, no, that's all good. You're perfectly legible. Awesome.
All right. So it wasn't a UFO. It wasn't a dingo. It wasn't an elephant. It wasn't a Labrador. It wasn't a greyhound. It was definitely a thylacine. So there's wasn't a fox either.
Fantastic.
All right. Thank you.
No worries, David. I'll be in touch. We'll have a chat again soon.
All right. No worries. Thank you. Bye.
Good on you, mate. Thank you.
Thanks, Neil.
Good afternoon. Several years ago, a chap by the name of David McConville contacted me regarding his sighting in South Australia, not too far from Meningie, in the upper southeast. 1983, I believe it was. He did speak to a few different people at the time. His sighting was reported to Parks and Wildlife Service in South Australia. Back in the day, the Department of Environment and Planning was responsible for the Parks and Wildlife Service in South Australia. And they used to put out a publication called N-Plan. And it was just a little brief thing they would have punched out on a photocopier just about what they'd been up to and their research and things they were protecting. In this issue, number 23, January 1988, This is supplementary to David's interview. Tasmanian tiger sightings in the southeast. Now, all of you that follow us together would know that I have a lot of knowledge of sightings from the southeast of South Australia, largely thanks to the South Australian Museum and, more importantly, Kath Alcock and Dawn Anderson's research. I collected all of their research last year from Heather in Katoomba. Anyway, I'm going to go on with this article in regards to the sightings in South Australia and hear what Mr. Tony Robinson had to say about them in those days, back in 1988. So here we have the actual article. There's Tony there himself, probably quite a senior man now. There's our witnesses' sketch of what they saw. And here we go. Can the southern crow eaters still talk tiger? Dr. Tony Robinson, keep your eyes peeled for stripy bums. Does the Tasmanian tiger still exist in South Australia, aka the Thylacine or Australian marsupial wolf? 3 separate reports of recent sightings suggest that the striped wild dog, said to have been extinct in Australia well before European settlement and in Tasmania since the 1950s, could still survive in the relatively natural vegetation of the upper southeast of South Australia. The news comes from National Parks and Wildlife Service Senior Wildlife Research Officer Dr. Tony Robinson. I have now had 3 observations of thylacines or Tasmanian tigers reported to me. 1, the most recent, was directly over the telephone, and 2 reached me as summaries from other staff of the National Parks and Wildlife Service who had talked to the lucky tiger spotters, he said. At the risk of creating an avalanche of tiger sightings in South Australia, I will summarise the 3 most recent reports. In other words, he doesn't want to talk about the plethora of sightings from the southeast of South Australia historically known to himself. He's going to focus on the 3 that he just had reported. On 8th March 1984, Sharon and John Chevalier were camping 5 kilometres northwest of Pinaroo when at 5:22 a.m. they saw 2 dog-like animals about 30 metres away. They appeared to be a mother and pup and were observed for 2 minutes and approached to within 15 metres before they walked off and disappeared into thick scrub. The observers immediately wrote notes on their sighting and did a drawing which anyone who is familiar with thylacines would have to admit is pretty convincing. And that is the drawing there that those people provided. Second sighting. On 22nd of November 1984, Alan Overland and his wife were driving south on the Dukes Highway 5 kilometres north of Culburra at 8:15 p.m. They saw an animal cross the road 25 metres in front of the car. Their first reaction was that it was a fox, but it was more dog-like. It was about 4 feet long from nose to tail and about 27 to 30 inches high. It had long legs with 3 dark bands around the tip of the tail. It was tawny coloured. It had a peculiar gait and crossed the road in about 4 bounds. It was powerfully built in the hindquarters rather than in the chest. They said, "We know they're extinct, but it did look like the illustrations we have seen of a Tasmanian tiger, aka Thylacine or Australian marsupial wolf." On 23rd October 1987, this is number 3 by the way, on 23rd of October 1987 between 5:30 and 6 a.m, Sharon Adams and her husband were driving north on the Princes Highway just south of Policeman's Point. This is the Coorong district. A 4-legged tan-coloured dog-like animal crossed the road very quickly in front of their car. It was about the height of a bull terrier at the shoulder, had a long stiff upturned tail like a greyhound or a whippet with a white tail tip. It had a series of darker stripes from its ribs to where the knee joined the body. They were wider on the back and they faded out on the belly. They were dark brown rather than black. Its coat appeared very short and smooth, almost like a seal, much smoother than their pet kelpie. Despite the sightings, Tony has his doubts. Here we come with the eternal scepticism. The conventional wisdom in the biology community in Australia says that thylacines became extinct on the Australian mainland well before European settlement, but that they survived in Tasmania. The conventional wisdom. So that's just a bunch of opinions. Some biologists think they were unable to compete with the dingo brought to Australia by Aboriginal people from Southeast Asia. Aboriginal rock art of unknown age in Arnhem Land and the Pilbara is thought to represent thylacines, and there are numerous Pleistocene fossil deposits throughout Australia and New Guinea with thylacine bones. A mummified thylacine was found in the 1960s in a cave on the Nullarbor Plain in Western Australia, but although it looks in good condition, it has been carbon dated at 3,280 plus 90 years old. In other words, they're trying to say that an animal that was juicy and wet and had maggot casings next to it was mummified. Mummification is a drying process, not a leaving something juicy on the cave of the floor of the cave for 4,000 years almost. It is even more complicated in Tasmania. The last record of a thylacine accepted by everyone as a genuine was of an animal shot in 1930 at Morbana. In 1982, Hans Narding had a clear view of an animal he thinks was a thylacine, and he actually works as a biologist with the Tasmanian National Parks and Wildlife Service, which is confirmation in the IUCN standards that the thylacine is not actually extinct, because Hans was trained. It is in the nature of these sightings reports that it is always your word against the cynical experts, and most experts are convinced that thylacines were extinct on the Australian mainland well before European settlement and have been extinct in Tasmania since the 1950s. All these descriptions fit thylacines, but it is almost impossible to determine. The bottom line there is missing after determined, so I'll continue on from the next page, the next paragraph. Unconsciously, after looking at pictures of the real animal, all these and earlier sightings of thylacine-like animals in South Australia are from the upper southeast, an area with quite large remaining areas of relatively natural vegetation. This area also supports the only significant population of wild dogs dingoes south of the dog fence in South Australia. The National Parks and Wildlife Service, in fact, provides financial support to a dog trapping program around the boundaries of Billiat, Mount Rescue, Mount Shaw, Scorpion Springs and Narcat conservation parks. Are there really thylacines in South Australia? I personally don't believe so. I cannot see how a population of large carnivorous animals like thylacine can have survived 150 years of settlement of South Australia without more unequivocal evidence than mere sightings turning up. Mere sightings? Still, next time you are driving in early morning or evening on the Dukes or Princess highways, keep your eyes skinned for stripy bums disappearing into the scrub. So, there you have it. That is Dr. Tony Robinson's opinion from 1988, January in fact, of what he thought of thylacine sightings from the southeast of South Australia. He only looked at 3 sightings. Wait there a minute. Never forget Kath Alcock and Dawn Anderson's work from the southeast. They investigated hundreds of sightings. This is all the plethora of evidence that Dr. Tony Robinson doesn't actually want to talk about. Okay? South Australian Museum handled this situation very poorly back in the day. They were very disrespectful in the media to these women who did all of this research. These ladies did a fantastic job documenting hundreds of sightings all over southeast South Australia and other parts of mainland Australia as well. There was many descriptions, many drawings, many plaster casts of feet And Heather Gilroy still has those plaster casts. We're hopefully going to find them one day. And here's dossier number 2 of all of Catherine's Dawn's work. And, you know, dozens and dozens and dozens of sightings. Dozens and dozens of reports, letters, so much information, letter after letter, even hair samples. Several, there's Dawn with a little pygmy possum back in 1966, I think that was. And here's her daughter Rosalie, and the Woman's Day article, Walkabout magazine article from 1965, written by Smella Harris from South Australia. Lots of evidence, lots of history, lots of ignorance from academia trying to pretend that these people all had it wrong, these hundreds and hundreds of people. So yeah, there you have it, another great report from South Australia. And I'd like to thank David for coming forward again and reminding me and sending me a copy of the article from the National Parks and Wildlife Service End Plan, January 1988. Shows the continuing denial and arrogance of academia when it comes to an animal that has been seen by thousands of people all over Australia for hundreds of years. But anyway, the search continues. Have a good day, folks.